Hey there, it's Joseph with Your Cup of Joe, and I'm coming to you a little bit later in the evening because it took a little bit of time for me to think about this particular topic, and it was actually a conversation that I was having earlier with a friend of mine here on Facebook. So Marianne, this one is dedicated to you just because of the questions that we were talking about on your post here, and it's involving you fixing you. It's involving the whole terminology around fixing yourself, whether it's in a relationship, out of a relationship, looking to get into a relationship. You know, this is it's a tricky question, and I see a lot of people asking it constantly. And I know that I asked myself the same question when I had gotten out of my marriage, and also when I had gotten out of another relationship that was really troubling me. And not that this is about that, but what this video is about is it's about how we go about that process, and what does that really mean to fix ourselves? What does it really mean to fix you? So just going from personal experience, I've faced a lot of adversity when it came to relationships, especially with a narcissist. And what a lot of people don't understand is that narcissism is really within all of us. I mean, a lot of us demonstrate narcissism, especially in our social media lives, because it's an attraction to comments or likes or getting engagement from people that really feeds our mind into being accepted, right? And a lot of the times what we tend to do is we reach out outside of ourselves looking for that acceptance. And we fail to remember that the only acceptance that we need in this world is right inside of here. You only need to accept yourself. And so the mindset that goes into the thoughts of fixing yourself, it's really about whether or not you are capable of filling your own bucket of love, so much so that it overflows to the rest of the world, and that the rest of the world gets to enjoy all of you without expectations from you to give back. That you don't expect the rest of the world to give you anything, and you can wake up every day and you can go through your day and you can end your day perfectly happy with everything that happened. And if you have somebody in your life, or if you don't have somebody in your life, if you're in between, that doesn't matter. That doesn't bug you, because you're so full of love for yourself, and not in a narcissistic way, but you're so full of love for yourself because you understand that you make yourself happy. You understand that you fulfill yourself. You understand that when you're in a relationship, if you are happy and you are in love with yourself, that you can bring more love to the relationship. So Marianne had asked, why do we always have to be fixing ourselves? And I guess in the sense that there's a few different ways to look at that, right? Why do we always have to be fixing ourselves? Well, if you get out of a troubled relationship, then typically what tends to happen in relationships is we become codependent, right? So we are intradependent on one another. And we rely on the other person for satisfaction, or we rely on the person for gratification, or whatever it is that we got from them within that relationship. So when you get out of a relationship, it's really hard to identify with yourself, right? And those of you that are having experiences of trouble in your relationships, you'll understand what I'm talking about, because it's really hard to identify with the self after being dependent on somebody else to identify who you are. And it could be with the relationships that you have with other people. It could be the friendships that you have. You had some similar friend circles, or your family still engages with that person, and it's really hard to separate yourself from that. Or maybe it was just a really long-term relationship. And identifying who you are after that is really what we're talking about here with fixing yourself. It's going within, learning who you are, understanding what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and then overcoming the necessity to have somebody there next to you. Because you place so much of your life and your own personal self-image of who you are into that relationship. So you really have to take the time for yourself and identify that. Go down deep and pull out your pen and your paper and write down the things that you're grateful for about yourself, and write down the things that you're grateful about the person that you were with. And if you can't identify things that you were grateful for with them, then that is a sign that you need to fix yourself. Because at some point or another, you were grateful for that person. It just so happens that things don't tend to be working out right now, right? So fixing yourself, it's not a sense of always having to be fixing yourself. It's more of a sense of, I need to be right with who I am, and I need to accept who I am, and be totally willing to be fine with who I am today. So another question she asks is, are we ever fixed enough, and how do we know? You know, I would say that for me personally, the answer is yes, we do become fixed enough. And when we become fixed enough, and when we know we're fixed enough for somebody else, is when we give up the need to have somebody, when we can let go and fully release that aspect of our ego that wants to trap somebody within our lives, right? And I use these words because it's really interesting what the dynamic becomes within a relationship, is that we forget to be individuals that bring amazing things to one another in our lives. And we become a mixing of two individuals that are really described or can be explained as one being, right? You get invitations together to go to places together. A lot of people don't know how to separate that in the relationship, and they don't have their own lives outside, their own interests outside of the relationship. So it's really hard for them to identify that. So when you know that you're done with your fixing, is when you can have friends or you can get involved with somebody else, and you don't need them in order to feel completely fulfilled within your life. And you know that they respect you for what you bring to the relationship without placing expectations on you, and that you can do the same for them, that you don't have to place an expectation that they're going to wake up in the morning, they're going to love you in the morning, they're going to be happy with you 100% of the time, they're going to be totally happy with everything that you do and everything that you are. And then if they're not, that they're not going to show you love. Are you okay with that? Because if you're not, then you have fixing that you need to do inside. If you're jealous and you're controlling and you're angry all the time, you've got fixing to do inside. Because those are all symptoms of somebody who's holding on too tight. Those are all symptoms of somebody who can't find themselves within that relationship. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous to you for your well-being, and that's dangerous for your relationship or your soon-to-be relationship. Because if you can't find yourself as an individual, then you'll never be able to coexist with somebody else. And her last question was, what if what I need to fix myself is within my relationship with somebody else or with a friend or something else? And it's interesting because the things that need to be fixed in a relationship aren't necessarily things that two people have to fix. What we tend to do when we have problems with one another is we focus on the problems. We focus on what's wrong. Think about when you initially got into a relationship or you initially started a friendship. You're talking all the time. You're doing things intentionally for that person. You're going out of your way to to love and engage with that person. You physically go out of your way. You stay up late. You go and do things that you normally wouldn't do because you want to invest in somebody. And yet when things start to turn and we get comfortable within that relationship or within that friendship, we forget to do those things because something else takes precedence. Something else becomes more important. And then slowly but surely, as we forget to verb, as we forget to love as a verb, as we forget to do, to act love for somebody else, then we forget those little intuitions that show us the way on how to fix whatever it is that's wrong. So I'm going to tell you this right now. There is nothing that needs to be fixed within two people. Two people cannot focus on a problem and try to come up with a solution for each other within that issue. If the person goes inside and looks at what they are doing, then they can fix themselves and they can fix their actions and they can change the entire dynamic of a relationship. I'm going to offer you a resource right now. And you may not be religious. If you are, then more power to you. This is going to serve you well. There's a book called The Love Dare. And it's a really awesome book because what The Love Dare does, and it's a movie that Kirk Cameron was in. It's not called The Love Dare. It was something else. But the book is based on the story that's told in the movie. And what happens is the wife of Kirk Cameron starts to have an emotional affair with somebody at her work. And it's very visible to him. And he starts getting all the signs that, you know, that she's involved or investing herself in somebody else. And he feels this sense of overwhelming grief. And so he turns to his father, and obviously dads are knowledgeable and they're experienced so they can help. And the father turns back to God and he tells him that you are not going to change her. You are not going to change her mind. Your job here is not to change her. Your job is to change you. You forgot what you needed to do. You forgot to invest. Because love is like a bank account, right? If you're making deposits at the beginning, you're investing into this account, you're overflowing with abundance and love, and you have a tremendous amount of engagement with one another. But over time, if you start to withdraw from that account without making more deposits, guess what happens? You overdraw that account. And when you overdraw that account, that's when things go south. So the Love Dare talks a daily task to remind you of what you have to do in order to make that relationship functional. If you want to fix anything in any relationship that you have, you've got to be the change that you want to see. You've got to learn those steps and learn those cues in order to be successful in that relationship. And all it is acting with love. Because you will get what you give. And there is no other way about it. If you want to be happy, if you want to have a connection, if you want to be engaged, if you want to have a relationship, if you want to be loved by somebody else, you have to love first. You have to give a relationship. You have to act as if. You have to do your part. I hope that this message touches a few of you. If you are experiencing troubles in your relationships, just remember that only you have the answer for how you can fix you. And fixing you is the most critical thing. So thank you so much for joining me today for Your Cup of Joe. By the way, if you look in the description of this post, you will see a link. And that link is going to take you to my Facebook Messenger where I am sharing awesome updates. I share all of my videos just in case you don't catch me live or if you don't get the notifications. If you're on YouTube, you'll also get those notifications as well. Connect with me there. I'm going to be sharing some awesome content coming soon. It's fully automated, so whenever you reply, it replies in kind and it gets you to exactly what you need. Because there is a topic for everybody that needs something. And I'm touching on a lot of those topics. So I hope that in me being able to share that with you with another tool that I was able to create, that it brings you the prosperity and the love and the relationships and the mindsets and the inspiration and the motivation that you need to build the life that you desire by design of you. Have an amazing evening, and we will talk soon. Take care.